Agencies Drinking Beer is brought to you by Proposify, software that helps you deliver beautiful proposals in the cloud and close more deals.
Welcome to the 70th episode of Agencies Drinking Beer. On today's show, we're talking to Andy Frey, and he's going to tell us what non-technical salespeople in tech companies need to learn to close more deals. I'm joined here by Alex Plum.
Hello.
You're the co-host today.
I'm the Ed McMahon of your Johnny Carson. You're the Andy Richter, the Paul Schaefer.
This time that's what you are. Usually it's me when we do your podcast.
I don't have a podcast.
That was just
except in life. You're my sidekick.
Yeah, in the podcast of your life. So Kevin couldn't be here with us today. I think he has a case of the sniffles. And it's really cold out today.
It's really cold. It's minus 13 degrees Celsius in Halifax today. And it's a little chilly.
What would that be in Fahrenheit? Chilly. You're an American.
That would be, I think that's around 4 degrees Fahrenheit. 0 Fahrenheit, something around there. I think it's around zero.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. People are just cringing right now thinking about that.
It's pretty cold. And the biggest problem with Halifax, though, is how windy it is.
Mm.
I mean, we probably have a 40 kilometer per hour wind today, 30 kilometer.
It was brutal.
So wind chill, I think, is around, the minus 20 something.
Yeah.
And it's snowing. So we've got all of it.
Kevin didn't make it in. I believe he was captured by an ice creature. And he's in a cage now. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's the abominable snowman's next meal. It's a harrowing adventure. You'll hear all about it in the next episode.
Yeah, he's currently being rescued by Harrison Ford. Cool. So we actually have a really good interview coming up with Andy Frey, who does business development at his agency, former programmer. So I thought it was kind of cool getting one of our great developers here at Proposify on to talk to another developer.
Yeah, there was a lot of really interesting stuff in that. Really was very interested to hear his thoughts on his dynamic with his developers now. How does an ex-developer that goes into sales, who now has to sell all kinds of stuff that may or may not be possible, how does he interact with the developers on his team? Do they see him as one of them, or do they see him as the enemy?
Yeah, you've gone to the other side.
Yeah, he's gone to the dark side of the force. Very topical, by the way.
It is topical. Yes, Rogue One is opening today or yesterday. It started.
It was last night.
So really good insights on that one, and a quick announcement. This is our last show. Somebody laughed in the background.
Cut that out.
Yeah, not to alarm the listener. I'm sure there's gasps just being heard around the world that this is the last show.
I just heard a laugh.
Yeah, it was a laugh. No, this is the last Agencies Drinking Beer, and I'm going to leave it at that for now. We've had 70 episodes. It is a cliffhanger. We are going to launch one more quick episode in the new year to tell listeners what's next and where they should check out some more cool content from us.
70 episodes. That's quite a run, though.
It is a run. 2 seasons.
I think I've been in 3 of them now. This is my 3rd.
Yeah.
I was a special guest in one of them.
Yep.
About the power of gifts. And I think the 3rd episode or 4th episode, I had a cameo.
Yeah.
Where I had a few drinks in me. And you asked, and I was just getting up to leave from the office. You asked me where I was going.
Right. That was a long time ago.
And I said, I'm just going to go pass out at home and disappoint everybody. You can hear me in episode 3 or 4.
Speaking of drinks, you're going to hear in this next, in the interview that we do in about a minute. Now, Alex poured me some very strong drink right before the podcast interview.
We each had 4 shots of tequila.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I was just drinking whatever you gave me. It did taste strong. It did, I noticed it was strong, but I still didn't think it was that much alcohol. So there's a little bit of slurring, a little bit of swearing. I become a bit belligerent towards the end of the the interview. But, I figured that was a good way to kind of go out on a bang as sort of our last interview, at least under the title Agencies Drinking Beer. So in the new year, I hope everybody has a great Christmas, by the way, and happy holidays and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, and whatever you celebrate. Hope you enjoy that. Thanks for listening for these past 2 years, those of you who were. Don't fret, there's going to be great stuff coming in the new year, so check out the episode that you'll hear in the new year announcing what is next. And with no further ado, let's move on to the interview with
Andy Frey.
Nice. It's difficult to describe what today's guest does in just a few words, but if I had to try, I'd say he builds things. So Andy has been in IT for 30 years, working mostly as a network engineer, and then in about 1997, he transitioned to the web and app development. He builds things at homes. He's built PC building companies, cable classified channel scheduling software companies, network engineering companies, a web development firm. Then he transitioned to becoming more of a salesperson at meltmedia, where he works today. And so today we're talking to Andy Frey. Is it Frey or Fry?
Fry. Although
Fry.
I don't correct people when they say it because it happens so often.
Yeah, it is spelled like Frey.
Start over.
No, I'm not starting over. Andy Frey. We're going to talk to Andy about why he transitioned from being a developer, an engineer, to being a business development sales guy just a few years ago, and what non-technical salespeople need to learn. Thank you for being on the show, Andy.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
We're delighted to have you. This conversation came about because we were just talking. You guys are Proposify customers. You and I jumped on the phone, and you started talking a little bit about your background, and I just thought, man, you would be a really good guest on this show.
Yeah, and you could have just cut me off and said, thanks, I got what I need. See you later. But you didn't. You're a nice guy.
I don't do that. Well, it's not just me being nice. It's me being greedy and wanting really good content for the podcast. So I want to jump into this now. I need to know. So one thing I missed in the intro was the fact that not only have you built things with technology in terms of programming, but you're also into electronics and woodworking, and you've even motorized your office chair at work so you don't have to get up.
Yes.
What is this all about?
So
20 miles an hour, apparently.
20 miles an hour?
It can do 20 miles an hour, but not safely. So, yeah.
Do you need roads?
You don't need roads. You need very smooth surface. It's not an incredibly stable motorized IKEA chair. No offense to IKEA. But, people ask me that. Actually, that's the first question every time. It's like, why would you motorize your office chair? And initially,
getting up is healthy. Standing up is healthy, right?
It is, and a lot of times the chair ejects you, and you have to get up anyway. So that's healthy, except for the raspberries and bruises. I've always said just because, but that seemed like a lame answer. So now I say things like, why can't horsepower or thrust be properties of office chairs? Getting deeper, but it's really no deeper than. I just wanted to motorize the office chair, and when I initially we had just one office, and it was a bit of a haul from one end to the other, and I thought, the owners of the company were super cool, and I don't think they'd argue, and they didn't. So I bought a 3/4 horsepower scooter motor and some other parts, and put it on the front of an office chair, and that was it. And then I didn't. It was fun, but it needed something else, so I put a giant control panel on the thing with a joystick and 32 buttons, an LCD screen. It's got a car alarm. It's got 100 LEDs, red, green, blue LEDs, headlights, sound effects. It's actually the world's most expensive whoopee cushion, because when you sit in it, the seat sensor will fire off 15 different random fart sounds. So,
wow. There you go. I imagine you have an unfair advantage in office chair jousting.
I do. I am the, it's a speed thing, really, and
You're like the mountain in Game of Thrones.
Exactly. Yeah. And I blind them with the headlights when I'm coming at them, so it's not fair.
Wow. It's craziness. And so you've been able to do that, obviously, with your vast technical background.
Yes.
So that's what we want to talk about on the show today. And I think a lot of people listening are either developers who started their own companies and have had to learn how to sell, or they're people who sell for a living and they have to sell technology, but they don't necessarily have a technical background. So before we kind of get into that, I just want to hear from you. Why did you, with this long tech background in engineering, network engineering, building web design, web apps, why did you decide, just in 2012 to transition into more of a sales business development role in the company you work in?
I guess 30 years of doing the same thing, I probably should retire. So I guess it was just I wanted to get out from behind the keyboard and see the sun. But also, I have always had a knack for selling. So I've always been personable. Just ask me. Funny. I've always been an ambassador or an evangelist for the things that I believe in. Technology, an organization, you name it. And at Melt Media in particular, we had a couple salespeople on staff, and we're very heavy with technology people, very, very heavy. We have a team of project managers. We have a very large team, 20 or 30 developers here in Arizona. It's kind of a custom software company, more than anything, but we do mobile apps and web development at an enterprise level. So. But we really hadn't had to have a sales department. We had a reputation, so a lot of sales were just inbound, just references, people talking about us, people going from some of those large enterprises to somewhere else, and then kind of taking us with them. And so as we wanted to expand our verticals and get out there, we kind of quickly realized you need to have someone on the business development team who also has some tech chops, who can kind of speak the technical language, Klingon to English and back. That's kind of what we were missing. And the salespeople at the time were asking to take along technical people, and I saw an opportunity. I kind of wanted to stop being working at the keyboard and wanted to get out in front of people, and so it kind of worked out. And I just moved over. It was just an opportunity thing.
Right. Do you think that the people who were not selling, who didn't have necessarily a background in engineering, do you think that there were some questions that they were missing? So you talked about how your agency, they were mostly dealing with inbound leads or referrals, which is how a lot of agencies are built. They don't really have a lead generation system where salespeople are just fielding inbound leads.
Yep.
They're more dealing with, so there's a referral in the door. They want to work with you guys. Now you need to follow up and talk to them and maybe put out a proposal and deal with the scope and all that kind of stuff. Is there anything where you think that your knowledge and your background in engineering kind of gives you a leg up when it comes to talking to leads who need tech built?
Yeah, it usually is more useful when they bring one of their techie people to the table. And I actually, in my experience, that happens a lot. They bring someone to kind of, it's a vetting thing initially. So you'll bring say that's the CMO with you, the marketing people, and then you'll bring because usually we're dealing with websites and mobile apps, things that are going to be client facing for our clients, and so it'll be someone in the marketing team or it'll be someone in business development, and then they'll usually bring along someone fairly technical, even higher level, even if it's a CTO or an IT person. But so you kind of want to have everyone at the table who can speak the same language at any of those levels. And the cool thing about someone like me, where I've had to sell my own things myself when I was running my own companies, and then where I believe in what we do at Melt Media, and I was in the trenches. I was building the stuff that Melt Media built, and I can speak English. Having just that one person there, we're not loading the room full of 20 people. First of all, we're not bringing a giant team looking like a legal firm. No offense to legal firms, but
they're crying.
Yeah, they are. I can feel it. But it's kind of nice to have that Swiss Army knife at the table and kind of keep things lean and mean. And I can work through any conversation. I can respond to anything almost. It's at the point where I'm in front of a client. I'm not getting into the modules in Drupal or the Java code in AEM, Experience Manager. I don't have to at that point, but I know the language. So I don't know. Is that kind of a roundabout way to answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, what would you say that 4 or 5 years ago when you decided to kind of make this leap into a little bit of a different career path? Mm-hmm. What are some things that you learned over the last 4 or 5 years that you didn't know then that you know now when it comes to selling technology?
I honestly, 4 or 5 years ago, if you had asked me then if I knew how to sell things, I would have said, oh yeah, I've got lots of experience. And then when I got out into this more enterprise world, which I had never been in, I'd tell you, I didn't know a lot about sitting in front of larger clients with bigger budgets and having a team of people in front of me. That it's very intimidating. Traditionally my background was in smaller projects, not 6-digit or 7-digit projects. These were, somebody wanted a Drupal website or somebody wanted a website. It was me and the owner of the company. And I'm super comfortable when I'm talking one-on-one with someone. That's easy. And usually I knew everything as far as they were concerned. So there was just complete and total comfort. Now when, I think when I first asked the partners if I could transition to this role, I thought it was going to be that easy. I was pretty certain, so I hadn't thought about the types of people I was going to be sitting in front of. And so now I would say what I've learned mostly is that it's going to be a zillion different people, not just owners of companies, and it's not going to be mano y mano or me and someone else. It's going to be a group of people at one side of the table and us on the other side, and they're going to throw way more questions and stranger things at me than I've ever encountered. So ultimately, I guess what I've learned is you never stop learning and you never stop gaining experience at this. I have not seen every scenario yet, and I probably never will. So it's a little daunting.
Absolutely. Enterprise is really even its own language when you have to talk to them or sell to them. It's there's so many words, so many things that you have to understand that you don't encounter anywhere else.
Yeah. And it's go ahead. Oh, I was going to say I thought that IT was the king of acronyms. Holy cow! There's marketing, business. There's so many other verticals of acronyms out there that I've just had to learn along the way. And we have, meltmedia. One of our big ones is pharma. Big pharma, and mm-hmm. that's its own thing almost compared to other verticals I've worked in. I mean, it floors me. It's taken me. I've been at Melt for almost 8 years, and I hear terms from some of the teams that are working on those large projects, and I'm like, what the heck does that mean? How have I not heard that? It's just
absolutely
Yeah,
constant.
medical is its own thing.
Yeah.
When you were dealing with smaller clients, when you were dealing with just maybe small businesses looking for web mm-hmm. design development, you mentioned Drupal,
yep.
Which typically is people looking for a content management system,
yep.
a small business using it. When you're now dealing with enterprise and you're dealing in these 6 and 7 figure budget ranges, you're probably also dealing with their own IT people internally, their own tech people who are kind of evaluating you, almost sniff test in a way. Do you guys really know your shit? Is there any security implications? Blah, blah. And we've been through that in the past in our own agency. How do you kind of feel those when you never want to be like two gorillas going up against each other to like battle for dominance. Right. But do you ever get into a pissing match with their own IT people? How do you handle those situations?
Oh my gosh. Those are the best stories.
This gives me like some some nightmares. My background is public education IT.
Yeah, I
Alex
spent a lot of years.
a large institution, a large university here in Halifax that's known across Canada, and Alex was in their IT department.
Yeah, I worked for many years in the K-12 schools in Michigan, so lots of experience with the institutional stuff. So it's funny. I guess it doesn't matter. You're either going to offend people or you're not.
We hope to.
Go ahead.
To me, in IT, it seems like it's little kingdoms and little fiefdoms. I guess you come to the table. Geez, I could really name clients. You come to the table and
You can do it. We don't want to tell anyone.
Nobody's going to hear this. Yeah. So you come to the table and you talk about, one of the things that we do and we pride ourselves on is we listen very, very intently, and we try to figure out, okay, does the client know exactly what they want? Really, can we help them figure out what is best? How to best spend that budget? And sometimes you recommend things that the IT guy sitting across the table doesn't like, and it may just be that he doesn't like it. It's just and a perfect example. And this is almost always what it is. You're a Microsoft guy or girl, or you're a PHP or open source guy or girl. There's like a divide, which is kind of ridiculous. I'm open source guy, so I've always leaned toward open source, Linux, the LAMP stack, all that stuff. But I have no real problems with Microsoft. It's just not the way I went. I have problems as a designy kind of guy with some of their interfaces, but that's UX versus back-end stuff. So, but you get into these you say something and you have to read these people as you get better at it. Being empathetic helps a lot. That's another big point, is being empathetic. But trying not to cause that pissing contest or stepping on their toes. If I say we're a big Drupal shop, or we like AM, or we like WordPress or whatever, and it's not Microsoft, if they are a Microsoft shop, and we usually try to research this ahead of time, but if you find out during the conversation that they are on the other side of tech, you're like, oh man, what did I do? And then you just try to keep it calm. You try to tell them, we're tech agnostic, we really are, and so we use that as a weapon, or as a fire extinguisher, I should say. But that's usually what it is. It seems to me that so many places I've been, the IT people are protecting a domain, and if you so much as hint at changing any of it, they start to get a little antsy. And so it's hard to mitigate that sometimes, because you just don't know. And I've got man, so many stories, but it just seems like sometimes I'll say something not meaning I'm going to replace your Microsoft's cloud or servers with Linux, but I'll just say something as maybe we could do this, and then suddenly their eyes get red. They're silently shooting laser beams at me across the table. They're knocking things from then on in the conversation. It's
just challenged their domain.
Absolutely.
The
biggest challenge, from my experience anyway, just broadly speaking, was trying to sell something that replaces something that already exists. And the person who designed it 20 years ago is sitting at the table.
Right.
He or she is the one that makes the decision.
Yes.
How do you even begin to sell that?
Right.
You have to convince them that their own product doesn't work.
And
that's all. Yeah. And that's all they have.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And it's funny. I have more stories of it going kind of south than I do of it turning around. But I do have some really great stories of it coming around. Where we worked with an aerospace company that sells aerospace parts, and they had some legacy stuff they had written themselves and everything, and we made suggestions as to how we might make this new interface and everything better, and they were super receptive and very, very open to it. Family run company basically, and they knew they knew they wanted to lead the industry, so kind of whatever it took, which is super cool. We had a health insurance company that we talked to who had big iron stuff in the background, the IBM stuff and all the old school things, and we came to them and talked about RESTful interfaces and all these things, and they were like, whoa, we're still doing SOAP. What's wrong with SOAP? And so, not to nerd out, but that's pretty much how the conversation went. And
you're speaking my language.
Everyone should use SOAP. So we steered them very tactfully. Large organization too, and a lot of people that really loved what they had because it kept them busy, because it was older stuff, but they knew that their mobile app had to have a nice API for it, and the old stuff didn't really support that so well. So we worked together. We helped teach them the best ways to do a RESTful interface, and they worked on how to interface that back to their big iron stuff in the back, and it worked out great. App was a success.
That's great. So there's when I was doing some research for this interview, I looked at some questions that people who have transitioned from engineering to sales have asked themselves, and things that they're worried about. And I want to see what your take is. So one of them was, a lot of people who transition from developing and coding to selling, they're worried that they'll lose their technical edge. That we know that technology evolves very quickly, and you could be very knowledgeable, and then 5 years later you're completely obsolete. So how do you not lose that technical edge? How do you not get rusty in your skill set?
Boy, that I had in my notes about the losing, the first step, like how did I go about it? And the first step was make sure that's the path you want to take, because one of the sub points was skill atrophy. That's what I called it. It's hard. It's a practice. It's not that it's like being a doctor, but it is. You have to code constantly to keep your mind sharp at writing code or solving those kinds of problems. I think, in my experience, I've worked in a plethora of languages: C, C++, Objective-C, PHP, Perl when it was a thing, and I was super skilled at each of the things that I really got into. But as soon as I stopped doing it, it takes 6 months? I don't even know if it takes 6 months. If I step away from something for 3 months and come back to it and look at my code, well, that might be the way I write code. And I look at it, I'm like, what on earth was I doing here? Which is why I'm a firm believer in comments. But skill atrophy was a big one for me. That was my biggest fear before I went to the partners to ask if I could transition. And then the other thing is, I'm a maker. I'm a problem solver, and in business development you're solving problems, but when you're writing code, you're doing that every minute. You're solving problems constantly. I mean, it's what you do by nature, writing code. So was I going to be sad that was I going to miss that, because especially me, I'm such a hands-on, in the weeds kind of guy. And then is there just going to be general regret? Just overall, my career is going a different way, and it's in a territory that I am not necessarily trained for. So it's scary. It's very scary. But I guess I've always been good at selling. I've always done it really well. I've always sold things that I've made or that I've been working on. So that wasn't a stretch. My skill atrophy thing was still a fear. I work with my Arduinos and I practice code a lot, but the web stuff, I mean, I haven't touched that in years. The stuff I see with CSS and PHP now, Pete, I don't know how those front end dev kids do it. It looks atrocious.
Alex is one. He's doing it.
It's only gone downhill since you left.
I know. I got hired. The funny thing is, I got hired at meltmedia. It was March of 2009. I got hired there as a JavaScript guru. That was a long time ago in JavaScript years, and I was doing some amazing stuff for the Village Voice, for New Times, for their websites, and I was doing a lot of PHP. But to make to make managing media and stuff for these large newspapers easier, I wrote a lot of front end stuff in JavaScript, but all of our users had to use a specific browser, of course, because there was barely support for JavaScript across, all those things. So meltmedia thought that was cool, hired me on for it. I didn't touch it once after I got hired. So I no longer, I know what JavaScript is. I just don't use it anymore, and it's sad.
Yeah, I can relate to a degree, because even though I know coding at kind of a high level and I've done it in the past, I'm not really, I can't call myself a coder, but I am a designer, and I know that it's easy to sell your own design skills. It's hard to sell someone else's. So when it comes to you in a business development role doing sales for your agency, how do you approach, not just, if it's like, oh, I can do this, I can do that, how do you sell your team? How do you sell other people? You're as soon as that deal comes in and you close the deal with a client, you're no longer responsible for what gets done, how it gets done, when it gets done.
What I promised.
Yeah, how's that changed? How do you sell someone else's skills, not your own?
Yeah, do you get a strange satisfaction from promising features or things that can't be done?
And no, wait, yes. That's the quintessential salesperson. This is the problem in a lot of agencies, is that most developers hate in an agency setting. Most developers hate the person who does business development because they're selling things that can't be built. They're like, you want to build a fucking ship that sells, like, that takes you to Mars and makes your breakfast? Yeah, we can do that. And then the developers are stuck like, oh shit, I got 2 weeks to build this crazy shit that the BD guy sold. But you actually have an advantage because you know that shit takes time and it's not easy.
Yeah, now that the shoe's on the other foot, what is it like?
Right. They're bigger shoes. I wear a 9, and sales guys wear like 12s.
Sideshow Bob.
Yeah, exactly. We do have a pair of those shoes at Melt sitting around somewhere. So, it's an advantage and it's a disadvantage. The problem I'm having still to this day is that when we sit down with a client, I'm thinking about code. I'm like, how are we going to do that? How are we going to do this in code when I shouldn't be down at that level? That's not my thing to solve at that point. Mine is a high level thing. So staying high level and not going down, because I still practice code at home on my, on my Arduinos and my ARM processors all the time. So my brain is naturally wired to code and to solve the problems at a nitty gritty level. And I need to not do that when I'm out in front of a client. And I think about that all the time because, I was the same way. Sales guys said we could do this. And I'm like, have they written a lick of code? What the hell are they doing? like you just promised them we're going to be to Mars in 6 months. It takes longer than that to get there. Oh, yeah, no, but we're going to do it at light speed. What? Where are you guys coming up with this stuff? So
that's a classic agency developer problem, by the way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Totally. And so I am empathetic to the developers and the designers, cause. I get it. And so I try to stay high level. I try to stay on top of what they've done and what they've been doing and what they're capable of. And I also just try not to get that far into the weeds. So, what we tend to do is we tend to meet someone, the client, and we vet each other. If it's going to go forward and there's budget for this project and everything, then we'll get into we'll do a whole discovery phase at that point, and that's where the really nitty gritty stuff will come out then. And if it's not a fit, we have lots of local referral partners that we'll hand them off to, and we make sure that they're taken care of. We don't just tell them, sorry, this isn't going to work. We actually hook them up with someone.
Now, a lot of salespeople in every industry, and agencies too, they want to close a deal. They just want to get that revenue in, and a lot of the owners want that deposit because they need to make payroll, they need to pay their own bills. Do you ever find that there's a situation where you're kind of caught in a compromise where you go, as a developer, I don't want to promise this thing because I know it's too much to build in too little time for too little budget. But as a company, we need to get this client in the door. We need to close this deal. How do you as a person, Andy, wrestle with that compromise?
It's a constant struggle, because I come from the small world, where it's me and two other developers, or me and a designer and a developer, so every project from $5,000 to $75,000 to me looks like, score, like we should do this. So that's a hard habit to break. Whereas at where we're at now, meltmedia, we're large enough, we're just not tooled to do things that small. But we're in a lucky place too. In the whole time that I've been there, we've gotten deals regardless of how business development is pushing to do something or marketing's doing something. It's been working out. So in that respect, I'm lucky, but I'm also not gaining experience and being pressured into getting deals through the door, So we approach things very soft and comfortably. Almost every gig that I've ever gone in on from the very beginning has been very comfortable. We don't absolutely have to close this, but we'd like to. And we also understand maybe we aren't the perfect fit, but we could be. So it's, I've never felt pressure in this position. And this meltmedia is the only place I've ever sold for an agency where there are a lot of people, and it's a big thing, and it's millions of dollars every year, So this is lack of experience for me as far as the agency world. But we've been pretty lucky. It's just things have worked out, and when they don't work out, it's still okay, So there hasn't been pressure. But what we're trying to do right now is broaden our reach to other verticals than the ones that we're comfortable in. And this is now turning into, we'd like to get these. So the pressure's starting to amp up. And of course you want to grow. We want the growth to happen. So to reach out to those other verticals, it's going to take a little more pressure on business development. Marketing is stepping up now. And so we'll see. That one's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So yeah. I don't think there's a silver bullet for it, but no. I think that in the majority of cases, and this is speaking from my own experience and talking to other agency owners, is that when you're a web app, web design development company, a lot of the people who are selling the services have never built them.
Yep.
They're in the sports world, you might have people who are coaching and doing management, and they've used to be players, right? But
yep.
You don't always get that in the agency world. The people that are selling the products, selling the services, have never done it themselves at a granular, detailed level.
Yeah.
So for somebody who is in that situation, who is a business development person at an agency, maybe they're their account director or account manager, whatever their title is, what should they learn on their own that's going to make them more equipped to sell tech better if they don't have your 30 years of tech experience in their background? What should they be thinking about to make that sales process easier for them?
Well, I would say that they need to learn to be empathetic to those developers and those project managers and those designers. So that's communication. Spend some extra time talking to the people who are going to have to do the work. Don't isolate yourself. Communicate. Hang out with them. Ask them questions. It's like anything. The Kirby vacuum salesman has to understand the silly vacuum. I mean, it's just a vacuum cleaner, but in order to sell it, he's got to know all those crazy little features and all the nooks and crannies and all this stuff. I think it should be the same for software development or for agency work. You should understand, the capabilities as absolutely best as possible. So spend some time with those people and ask them questions. Can I sell this? Can you do this? Are you capable of this? Learn from the previous projects. Talk to the managers about, how long did it take to do this website? You got this. For instance, we've been tracking, data on how long it takes us to do certain things for quite a while now, and that's actually, I think it's paying off. So if the salespeople, who I don't think in my experience tend to research that information, they just go out and sell. They just go at it, machete in hand, and try to get the deal. But a little more finesse and understanding what's going on, after that project's handed off to the team, and what they're capable of, I think would go a long way. I think that's super important, and easy for me to say because I was in it, but and I know it takes time, and time is money when you're a sales guy. You're trying to get things going, trying to make deals, and you're probably juggling 20 things at one time. But take some time and get to know, the agency and the capability and the people in it.
Yeah,
and maybe they'll tell you, something you don't want to hear, but that's good. It's growth.
Yeah. So sometimes salespeople who are hired, it's not necessarily their fault that they can't sell properly, because the owner had just tried to pass off selling I don't want to have to sell. I'm just going to hire somebody to do that.
Make your own collateral.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the person who's hired to sell, it's not really their fault. They just got thrust into a situation. But if you can align them both, if the person who built the agency knows what the value prop is, who their target customer is, if they know all that stuff themselves, and it's a repeatable sales process, they can hire people to come in and amplify that. But if they're just hiring people to just do the work for them that they don't want to do themselves, they're going to fall flat. The salesperson isn't going to really be able to perform, right?
No, because the sales to that person that you hired, that's a job. Their heart's not in it. They have no skin in the game. What you do, if you're the owner, it's like, I know you know this, but when you're involved with something long enough, your heart's in it. You've got skin in the game because of time, because we get old, and you believe in it. You I know, don't tell anyone. So it's a different thing when your heart's really in it, and it's not a job. It's an extension of you. You firmly believe in it. It's super easy to sell it, I think, in my experience. There are things that I had done in my past that I'm like, maybe somebody will want this, and it didn't sell because I didn't care, or I had no skin in the game. If I didn't believe in it myself, I'm not going to sell it. But when you hire on a salesperson who, you may have to train them, or you may have to get them involved, you may have to hype them up. You have to be a coach. That's what it is. They're a player, you're a coach. You need to prop them up.
I want to ask your opinion. I believe personally that if you are meant to sell design services, if you work in a design firm where you're selling branding and you need to speak to typography and all the shit that a designer would talk about, go and take a course.
Yeah.
Or better yet, be a designer who took a course and realized they didn't really want to be a designer, but they're really good at selling it. Be that person. If you're
their heart's in it. Yeah.
Go and take a course. Online, offline, doesn't matter. Read a book. Learn about that shit. Don't try to be somebody selling stuff that you don't know about and you can't speak to at a detailed level.
Yes. Yeah. Even it's the other way around too. If you're a developer or a designer and you've got the grass is greener thing going on, and you think that the sales thing looks like a great gig and they look like they have so much fun, and not everybody's meant to do it, and you may be great at what you do, but your personality may be milquetoast. Maybe you shouldn't be doing it, and accept that. That's okay. That's that's okay to do, but don't try to force yourself into that. Your heart's in it or it's not. And some people, there are some super sharp developers that I've known who they watch the salespeople and they kind of wanted to go out and be client facing, and I do honestly think that can be taught, but there are some people then where they just don't. It's just hard to bring them in front of a client because you have to have some energy. It's an evangelist role, no matter what. You have to look energetic and you have to look like you believe in your product, and monotone is not the voice to have when you're out talking to people across the table.
What are you talking about, Andy?
we
Monotone is amazing.
we make great looking websites and we use open source and we believe in it. Yeah, it's but that's
I've heard that before.
Yeah. So I don't. You just watch it. You watch people who are selling and who are good at it. They're you can stereotype that. There is a thing to it, So
Well, there's a stereotype to developers too, which isn't like any stereotype. It's not always true.
Correct.
That they're introverted and don't like people and don't want to talk to people. And I would say Alex, who is on the show today, is the opposite of that.
That's the kindest thing anyone really has ever said to me.
No, Alex is one of the funniest people I know. Most outgoing people I know, most outspoken people I know.
Yeah.
And he is a fucking brilliant coder. Really good at writing code. And I know I'm making him uncomfortable right now. But like Alex, for example, would be a great example of somebody who one day wanted to transition to becoming in sales, because he knows how to write the code, he knows how to sell the code, and knows how to talk product and everything else. Not everybody is that. I know great developers who actively say they hate people and they never want to speak to a human being if they can.
Absolutely.
Right. They want the lights off. They want the shades down.
Andy, do you mind if I ask an unscripted question?
Sure. I love unscripted, actually.
Do you feel that your background has in any way given you a competitive edge?
In the context of sales or business development?
Well, let's say that you are one of multiple agencies working towards a contract.
Okay.
Do you think that you have an edge over your competition in getting that contract because you're able to talk both languages?
Yeah, I guess it's just opinion, but I think, coming from the the school district side where I had to had to go through the RFP process, and I've heard you guys talk about your feelings on RFPs, but it's part of the thing.
We love them.
Oh, I can't.
We don't do them, Nat.
We don't do them, but we all have an agency background.
Yeah, I think the R stands for rash, but anyways, but you go through that
rectal
process.
is actually what it stands for.
Yes, exactly. But and the P might be pain. I don't know. But the process you go through when you're interviewing the prospective vendors, and this was me, because I'm a technical guy. If I was talking to them and they brought someone who could speak at least close to my language, that brought a lot of comfort, and assuming I'm not being paid off or anything, I would, it's all about comfort with these people and the depth of their knowledge and everything. So you try to extract that from them when they're talking to them. So in a competition where there's 5, potential vendors lined up, if someone doesn't bring the knowledge person with them, they're probably going to be disqualified. I mean, you can show me slides all day long, but I want to know that the people I'm going to work with are amenable and that they speak English, to me the way I want to be spoken to, and that they're friendly to me and everything like that. If I don't see the team that I'm going to work with, I generally just didn't call them in. Mm-hmm. I want to see those people. They're humans. I'm going to interact with them.
Absolutely.
If the guy knows his stuff but he's a jerk, they're probably not going to take it, because I got to interact with this person, and I don't want that negativity around me. I try to surround myself with people who are positive, cool, smart. Usually try to get around people who are smarter than me, because that rising tide thing,
I don't like that because they make me feel stupid.
You stand behind them and you do the Cyrano de Bergerac thing.
I fire them.
Do you think you have I know that most developers, or many developers rather, at agencies have a sort of adversarial relationship with their salespeople. Looking at your developers, do you think do they see you as being on their side?
Yeah. We've been. I would think so, because I used to throw a party every summer called the Festival of Andica, and
That'll do it.
It was a it's a true story. I'd invite the entire company to the house, and it was nerd party central at the pool, and we drink and people get loose, they start talking, and I tried to stay part of the team as much as possible. Now we're much bigger than we were then, but I still try to communicate with all the OG developers that we've had and everything. So there may be, there's a lot of new people at Meltmedia now, and there may be some people who just don't know who I am besides the fact that I drive an office chair around.
You sound like you're about 30. So did you start? You've been in IT for 30 years. So have you been in IT since you were a baby?
Since he was a sparkle in his father's eye.
Yeah.
I've actually, I'll take that as a major compliment. I'm 48, so I started the story how I started.
AF.
I am, yeah. I mean, I was Slackware Linux was at like 0.02 or something like that, and I downloaded it on 3.5-inch floppies on my OS2 machine to try it out. So if that gives you any idea. And then
Jesus, come on,
yeah, my first computer was an Atari 400. So I started programming 6502 assembly language in BASIC on an Atari 400 because my dad bought it to play Pac-Man. So
I'm not winning this programming pissing contest.
Your piss is just spraying all over yourself.
Yeah.
I'm
messing myself now.
Yeah, it's one of those things though. It's quality versus quantity.
Alex sounds like he's 48, but he's like 25,
30,
29.
I haven't been in the business for 30 years. Only about 25 years.
Yeah, since he was in kindergarten.
In kindergarten, yeah. I'm sure if they'd had computers when I was in kindergarten, I would have started sooner. But it literally my dad got hooked on Pac-Man at a conference that my mom dragged us to, and right when he got home, he went right to Toys R Us and bought an Atari 400 and the Pac-Man cartridge. And
your dad's awesome.
He is funny. He is funny as all get out. And
can I have your dad over for Christmas?
Sure. Yeah. I'm sure he'd go.
You're drunk, Kyle.
But yeah, Pac-Man started it all.
Yeah, my dad, he started my love of computers with Leisure Suit Larry. We got Leisure Suit Larry.
I loved that game.
I had to, I had to run DOS commands and batch commands and stuff like that just to get it started. Had to look up in, I don't know if you remember the very first one, but it sort of had an age verification check.
Yes.
And, to prove that you were 18 years or older, I'm like 5 or 6 or 7 years old at this point, and I'm just going up to my parents with like an encyclopedia to like help me look up the answer to the age verification question. I never actually got past the first screen. I was just too young and stupid to type in like taxi or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Never got to see those pixelated boobies.
You were too honest.
Yeah.
I got into the game. That was the game.
The boob game.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a classic. That thing was great.
Anyway, that's the end of the unscripted questions for me.
All right, Andy, we're out of time. It was amazing chatting with you. Loved everything that we talked about. I think the listeners will get a lot of value out of what you talked about. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Agencies Drinking Beer. If you enjoyed it, we'd appreciate it if you rate and or review us on the iTunes Store. If you have a story or lesson to share with other agency owners and managers from around the world, hit us up. Just email Kyle or Kevin at proposify.biz. And also, if you write business proposals and you want to make that process a whole lot easier and more streamlined, check out proposify.biz and sign up for a free 30-day trial. Cheers!